Hello. How's it going, Jim?
It's going good. How are you doing,
I'm
Taylor?
I'm doing good. I'm enjoying the warm-ish weather that we're getting in Wisconsin right now, and I'm getting psyched for summer. Um and I am kind of excited for today's I should say I'm really excited for what is kind of, I think, a little bit of a throwback stream for us on Reclaim TV, and that is we're gonna try and run a weird tool on Reclaim Cloud, and that is kind of what a lot of the earliest streams were. It's just like, can we get this running? Um,
It's true, actually. I'm
and
excited because I have no idea what we're about to do.
yeah, so and I mean, spoiler for anyone watching, I have already gotten this running before on Reclaim Cloud off camera, this week and a little bit last week. So I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get it running. But it's kind of an interesting tool. I think, Jim, you'll find it interesting because it is like, in a lot of ways, like very directly an answer to cPanel. Like it is sort of like, what if there was a community open source cPanel? Because while cPanel does open source tools, it itself is a paid product, right? So as we are painfully aware of at
As
Reclaim
we
Hosting.
know so well.
Yeah.
And paid, it's not only a paid product, but their invoices seem to double monthly.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, maybe important. I probably good to the context there too. Like for us, it's the cost of doing business, and that kind of is what it is, right? There are a lot of good things about cPanel, like a lot of things it does well. Um, but that is tricky because, of course, that is a big expense. And I think the other thing to consider for folks is we do from time to time have folks who say, "Hey, I want to host like one site with you, like a managed hosting thing that we would do," and they'll say, "Can we add cPanel in there? That would be nice. I'm used to cPanel." We're like, "Sure." It costs, I don't actually remember off the top of my head, but it's a lot per month. In fact, often it's more than the cost of the server if you're running not that big of a server, just to license cPanel, and people are often surprised by that. So um, it's not a cheap thing. So this tool is called, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, to be honest. I think it's either YunoHost or YunoHost. I think YunoHost is the intended thing here. And it is kind of a, like I said, it is a community maintained open source thing that's
Why you
designed.
no host?
Yeah, it's designed to make like self-hosting services easy. And I think it was even originally designed for folks who are interested in like, firing up a home server in their basement or whatever, and just, hey, I
Totally.
have fast internet, I've got an old computer, I could run like one website on it or two, a small website. Um, and I think that's what it was originally kind of designed for. They talk a lot about that kind of like home lab or self-hosting setup here. But it's also really easy and well positioned to run in a cloud like Reclaim Cloud. So their website is honestly like not amazingly helpful. um, but it's basically, it does give a little bit of the story here, like, hey, you can kind of quickly set up a server to run some services for a friends association or enterprise, is what they bill it as. um, it's available, it has like a web-based management interface that's actually, I really like, in the little bit I've used it, and we'll look at that. And it's available as like something, like I said, you could run on a local computer, or that you could run in a cloud pretty easily. So um, we're gonna kick it off. I'm gonna get this installing because it'll take a few minutes to install, and then we'll kind of go from here. So um, if I go in here and hit get started, they have it available for a lot of different things. They even support the Raspberry Pi
That's
for
cool.
hosting, which is kind of
That's
neat.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to try it on a Raspberry Pi. I mean, you wouldn't be able to handle a lot of services on there, but it would be interesting for simple stuff. And then we'll hit remote server, and this one here. So basically, why YunoHost is built on top of Debian, which is the most popular Linux distribution. It is, so many things are built on top of Debian. Ubuntu is built on top of Debian. And so this is built on top of that as well. And so basically we just need a Debian server. We need an IP address and a domain name. And then we have to run this script basically. So I'm going to go to Reclaim Cloud. I'm going to quickly make a new environment here. And I'm actually going to change this to a VPS. And I'm going to just go to the More tab here and go to Elastic VPS and then Debian. It did specify Debian 11, so it looks like YunoHost does not support the latest Debian release yet. But Debian 11 is supported, or is getting security updates, so that's okay. I'm going to give it more resources to work with here than just the 4 that it started out with. I'm going to give it an IP.
So you're in Reclaim Cloud.
Yes.
You selected that basically, operating system for this server. You made it Debian, and you made it Debian 11. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. Debian 11.
All within Reclaim Cloud.
Yes. Yep.
In this beautiful GUI interface where you could do this.
Yes. And the great thing, we'll chat about this one after I hit install here, just to kind of give it some time here. But the great thing about doing this here is that you get, whoops, I want to clear some messages out here. I actually think Reclaim Cloud is an interesting fit for something like this. And that would be because the whole conceit of this tool is that you install it and then it itself is a management interface for the applications that you run inside. And that really pairs actually kind of nicely with the elastic nature of Reclaim Cloud. So if I go to the pricing page on Reclaim Cloud, we have this little diagram that shows like, hey, you pay for your usage basically. So you can provision a large server that has all kinds of RAM and a ton of CPU resources, but you're only going to pay for what you actually use in a given hour. And that is awesome for something like this because you can set up one environment and just like try some applications. And if they are, if they're receiving a ton of traffic, well, then you would pay more for them. But like you don't have to pay for a big, 8 gig of RAM, 16 gig of RAM server and be paying like $80 a month for that just in case you would use all of that RAM. In this case, you can provision a large server and be paying, $10, $15 a month. And when something needs the resources, it'll use them in that instant. You only pay a few cents for that CPU usage in that hour, which is super cool for playing around with stuff, for services that you don't really know how many people are going to use them. It's really great for that speculative stuff or just smaller projects. And this is, I think, definitely one of them. So I'm going to probably keep an install of this around just so that I can play with some of the apps that they support. And
do some analysis about money.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah, I would be interested to see how much it costs me over time. Like there are some things I definitely personally wouldn't use this for. So we'll install WordPress in YunoHost. They have a WordPress installer. I would use Reclaim Press or our WordPress installer because you're going to get a lot more value for your money out of that. Basically, It's going to be faster. Things like caching and stuff work out of the box, and there are some disadvantages to the way YunoHost works. So let me check here. So we do have our Debian container. So we'll get to the disadvantages in a second. I want to give it some time to install here. So I'm actually going to write ahead and go ahead and map a domain here. So I'm going to get this IP address. I have my cPanel open already. So I'm going to go in my zone editor. And I actually have like a domain that I use kind of just for scratch stuff like this for testing. So I'm going to give this, actually maybe I do like apps, like something more generic or I don't know.
I like it.
I wonder if I've used that one. That's the only thing I'm worried about. But
Zaps.
yeah, maybe yaps
Yaps. There you go.
for
Why
why
you
you
know
know
host.
host. So we'll do yaps.jaden.cloud, and then I
Jaden
put
Yaps on the cloud.
yep, and then I've put a record in here for that, and I'm gonna hit save.
Oh my God. We are connecting the
Yep.
server with the DNS. Now notice this is all managed in a cPanel instance
Yeah.
that Taylor has kept around for just this kind of thing, as he said.
Yeah, and so I of course have this on our shared hosting, but you could be using any DNS service. You could be using Cloudflare, and
Yeah.
YunoHost actually does a kind of a cool thing where it will check the DNS records and tell you what you need to modify, which is really neat. We'll see that in a
is
little
neat.
bit. It's kind of like Mailgun. Mailgun does that too, and it's a nice little tool. So we've got a domain mapped. I'm gonna just double check here. I like to use what's my DNS to see did the domain I map go through. It did, so that's great. So
Fast. Wow, that was fast.
yeah, our DNS cluster usually doesn't let me down, but if it does, if things break, it's usually DNS.
It was DNS. I used that in the ticket yesterday. I was like, actually, it wasn't our fault. It was DNS.
It was DNS.
And it was maybe partially our fault. But don't tell them that.
So I'm going to open up a terminal here inside of my Debian container. And I'm going to go back to the YunoHost website, grab this command. So it really just says, hey, become root on your server, and then copy and paste this command.
Now, is that hard to do, to become root on a Debian server that you have installed on Reclaim Cloud, or is that just out of the box?
That's just out of the box. So in case folks are wondering, in case this comes up for you, you can get root access to any container in Reclaim Cloud that you own. We have an article called Root Access to Any Container. Certain containers, though, you start out as root. And so that applies to VPS containers like Debian. It also applies to Docker-based containers, because the Docker service by default runs as root. And the reason that works that way is these VPS containers, like this Debian one, this Elastic VPS that we deployed, is designed as kind of like a blank slate. It's sort of like, okay, let's just get you access to a server, and then you can install whatever you want inside of there. That is in contrast to these, in the new environment button, these language-based containers, or a lot of our marketplace apps, where it's sort of like, we'll do the root stuff, and then you don't even need to have root, which is great a lot of times for high security needs.
Which is preferable, yeah.
Yeah, because you're just wanting to run this single application. So that being said, though, if you find yourself doing something in Reclaim Cloud and you need root access to a container, you can absolutely do that. We've got a guide here. It's really one step. I mean, this is one of those guides that's like, it's good to have a lot of screenshots, but this does not take long. You're really just copying and pasting code into a thing and hitting enter.
Exactly.
So it's quite simple to do. All right, so we've got root access already, because that's just out of the box. Let me paste that command in that I got before from the YunoHost page and hit enter. It does have this nice little pseudo graphical installer, which I always love in terminal apps.
Windows.
Yeah.
98 3.1, which I've been playing with right now, and I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I actually I would love to find out, like, a lot of these things use a library called curses to write this little graphical interface, and I would love to find out, like, is that hard? Like, could I make my site archiving toolkit work like that? Like, that would be kind of neat. Anyway, all right, so it's installing right now, and it has some questions. It says, hey, you already have some configurations for these particular services. Do you want to overwrite them? We do.
Yeah, I figured, because it's a brand new application on a fresh server.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. We don't have anything really to preserve, so we're gonna hit yes here. This one, though, is different. So it says, hey, we want to make some changes to your SSH configuration. And I would recommend hitting no here. And the reason this is Reclaim Cloud containers come deployed with a special SSH configuration that
Gotcha.
allows for the web terminal to work. If you hit yes here, now I haven't tested this, but based on what they're actually saying here, I expect if you hit yes here, the web terminal will stop working. Now it's not
work.
Yeah.
Web
So
terminal.
that would not be great at all. There are actually ways around this, but they would all involve you getting in contact with support and us doing some manual work in the back end to fix what was broken. So hit no on this one.
Short answer, no.
No, we're good. So it's gonna do some installing here. This is pretty quick. And what it's doing is literally just installing some packages on a Debian server. And we will see here when we install apps later, that's what it does to install apps too. So if you install something that needs PHP, it says, cool, I'll go get PHP for you. If you install something that needs Node, a specific version, it'll go get Node. Where that gets tricky is applications need all kinds of different things. Sometimes you have 2 Node apps that need different versions of Node. I shouldn't even say sometimes. Almost all the time, if you have 2 Node apps, they need different versions of Node and different dependencies. And so this tool tries to manage that for you. And that's actually kind of a tall order. One of the things that makes shared hosting work relatively well is that it is a standardized set of tools somewhat. Now, if you go talk to our infrastructure team, they'll go like, it's more complicated than that. And it is. But there is sort of a boundary around, okay, we're running on Linux, we're running Apache web server, LAMP, right? MySQL for the database, or MariaDB, which are effectively the same thing, PHP or Perl. And we have tools that let you change PHP versions. And even that is a lot of complexity, This kind of opens it up to, I don't know, does it run on Debian? Then we can try and make an installer for it. And they're all community maintained. And what I found is they have a ranking system of like, these are the installers that are good, and these are the installers that we're not sure about. And these are the installers that we know are broken. And they kind of have that laid out, which is kind of interesting. So, all right. So it says you should now proceed with post installation. You'll be asked for your password and the main domain of your server. And you can go to, this is saying like, if you're running this on your local computer, go here, but we actually need this global IP or the public IP. But in our case, we already mapped to domains, so that theoretically should work. So we're going to go there.
Yeah, stat.
Actually, I'm just realizing this is not going to work. There's one thing we have to do. I have to adjust the firewall. So in Reclaim Cloud, it's pretty, you have to open firewall stuff. A lot of things in Reclaim Cloud, we've done this for you, but this is a from scratch kind of thing. So you do have to do this yourself. So we'll go to settings.
So roll up your sleeves, hippie.
Yep. Firewall. You could turn firewall completely off. I would not recommend doing that.
Exactly.
But you could.
That's something I would do. Oh, this works.
I mean, for testing, I will do that, right? But if it's something you're going to use any length of time, you should have a firewall. So go to inbound rules and then add. And we can literally just from the list here, grab HTTP, hit add, and then do this again for HTTPS.
Yeah, and we're just adding those 2 ports for this server.
Yep. And so it's pretty simple. You get this nice GUI to manage it. And we'll refresh here, and it is loading now. It's giving me an error about HTTPS, which is expected. So I'm going to hit advanced and hit accept the risk. It says, congrats, YunoHost has been installed. 2 more configuration steps are required. So this is cool too. So they offer free subdomains, kind of like we do, reclaim.hosting subdomains.
Look at that.
So the project has some kind of deal with DynDNS to do that, which is neat. And you can also say, I don't want to use a domain, like if you're just using it for testing purposes, but we already have one, so I'm going to...
We have a domain.
Yep, yaps.jaden.cloud. And I'm going to hit next. I'm going to set up a username here.
Do you think they're fans of Sam Smith? Like the singer?
Why?
I don't know, because the default username was Sam Smith.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
You say you want me, but you don't even know what you've done.
They must be.
Anyway.
Maybe they should consider putting that like a background music or like a MIDI version of it.
You say I'm not the only host.
Then someone can fork YunoHost to remove that. Be like, can we not have this in the installer?
We want to take out this idiot singing Sam Smith from our version of the app.
That's better. Yeah, it should be a recording of what you just sang. That's what should be in there. For copyright purposes, we can't put the original song in.
I went to South Carolina with my kids once, and it was brutally hot. Like the cement, it was June, and like the asphalt was burning. And we went to this, little like outside mall, and people, and there was this karaoke set up in the middle of the mall. And this young girl was belting out Sam Smith better than him, that song. And I was like, oh my God. Me and the kids were like, woohoo, throwing money at her. It was great. Anyway, back to why you know Sam Smith, host.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight, Pilot says, and I'm going to just put, this joke will work better visually, so I'm going to put a banner up here real quick, but this is what YunoHost is short for. Why you say I'm not the only host.
Well done, Pilot. Pilot, keeping it real in the seats.
So I'm about to hit go here, and it says do not interrupt the operation. So okay, so I'll hit okay, and we got a little Pac-Man. That's cool.
Oh, look at that! I'm liking this YunoHost. The Pac-Man is very confused though. It just goes back and forth. It's like a
yeah, it's got
Pac-Man.
No dots, no ghosts, no purpose in life.
It's an imprisoned Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Let me out. It's awesome.
Yeah, so we're and I should say, by the way, after that single command and the two little, yes no questions, that's it for terminal stuff as far as I've had to do with YunoHost so far.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah,
So
the rest of it's all web interface. So,
and I imagine you can just run an SSL certificate on the back end once you have a little time.
It manages it for you.
Oh, it
so
does.
It has a Let's Encrypt integration and everything. So
beautiful.
It even has the ability to add multiple domains like you can on cPanel. So you can add a domain and it will tell you, cool, I need you to point these DNS records. Like, it is kind of cool. I want to play with this more because I think
does it allow you to manage DNS?
It doesn't have its so it does, but only for certain DNS providers. So what it can do is certain DNS providers have an API that you can use to request changes, basically. And I believe Cloudflare does. I think Amazon Route 53 does. A lot of the big ones, probably DigitalOcean. Actually, I don't know if you can register domains through DigitalOcean, I imagine. Yeah, so they probably, a lot of the big box ones do. They also, cPanel has an API. So you could theoretically hook your cPanel's domain DNS up to this. Now that's kind of weird because this is very transparently an alternative to cPanel.
Exactly.
So I'm not really sure how much sense that makes. But if you were already using cPanel for something else, then that could, right? Because it's not like it costs any money to add another domain to your shared hosting account, right?
You're right. And when you're right, Taylor. And you're right.
So it's a very interesting solution. There's some things, and I wonder if this is stuck or what we're doing.
It's only using 2 cloudlets.
Yeah, right now. We're not running much yet, but we'll see here. I'm not sure how long this is going to take here, but
you want me to sing some more? I can.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. I should mention some things I found out when playing with this before. Is it uses Nginx as the web server for everything. So as far as I can tell, it runs Nginx and it will configure it for, like WordPress. And then for other services that need a load balancer, it configures it for load balancing.
Oh, that's so cool.
It uses Nginx for everything, which is good. Like Nginx is really good software that's very popular. I will say I am very much less familiar with it than Apache, so
Yeah.
that's
I,
just
I
one thing
like
I don't
Nginx,
love.
but
But
I
it
just don't know it well enough.
exactly. I'm getting
It,
better with it, right? Like,
yeah.
but the thing with Nginx is it is for things like WordPress, the stuff that you and I work with every day, it is typically more steps to do things in Nginx because
Than it would
Nginx is
be an
kind of designed
HCI.
as a web server that can do almost anything, but it's also very small and minimal. So it does almost nothing out of the box.
And then Lightspeed came in, and for many, it's better than Nginx, although it costs some, and it works off the same model as
Apache.
HT Access. So it's like people went to Nginx because it was performance based.
Yeah.
Now, at least for WordPress, now with Lightspeed, you can kind of take what you've already known and apply it. By and large, almost 99% drop in really for
Yeah. Yeah.
HCI.
It's very rare that we have things that don't work across the two. So it's done. I just logged in with the account that I made as part of the setup process, and this is a nice, clean,
Oh,
basic
it's
interface.
awesome.
So first of all, one thing it absolutely beats cPanel on is it has just multi-user out of the box. You can just create more users.
Tell Meredith.
Yeah, I know. It's super awesome, and you can even have like groups, and it's
Awesome.
sophisticated. I believe it's just kind of making user accounts on the Linux side. Actually, I'm not. You know what? I'm
But
gonna take
these
it
are
back. I don't
user
know that.
accounts for this domain, though.
Yes, and the cool thing is you can do things like certain apps have single sign-on capability inside of YunoHost, and we'll look at that in a bit. But it's kind of like the Installatron magic links, where you can click on WP admin and it just logs
Yeah,
you in.
exactly.
Certain apps in YunoHost have that too, but the difference is it's not actually using whatever workaround. Installatron does that with a plugin basically that it or like a bit of PHP code, and it's only supported for WordPress. YunoHost runs a single sign-on. It runs SAML, or no, not SAML. I believe it's a local LDAP actually,
Huh,
and certain apps it will integrate with that for you. So the first thing we'll do here, actually, let's just go and install WordPress. So I'm going to go to Applications,
that's awesome.
hit Install, and there's some categories here, and there's a lot in this list to be clear. So if I
Yeah,
go in here in
it's
all apps, it's
what
like
is going on?
it is
Yeah,
a ton,
look at
and
that.
some of them are not really web apps. Some of them are like
Jupyter Lab, look at that. Only Office,
it has no Mecha
Omega
installer.
S, look at that.
Yeah. Pleroma is an interesting like lightweight Mastodon kind of thing. It's a Fediverse server. PixelFed actually is another Fediverse thing.
Pixel Fed.
Yeah. Um, there's a ton here, but there's also small little apps that are designed for like, okay, like Pyload is a download manager. I don't know what that is, but I'm guessing it's like a very minimal Python service for downloading files, right? So some of these things aren't really like web applications in the same way. Like you access
Yeah,
them via a web
it's just like tools, right?
browser. There's even like a torrent client, right? Like so this is like for anything from I want to host a website to I have some services I want to run on a home server. So I'm gonna go way back to the top. We're just gonna search for WordPress here.
Oh, and it even gives you 20 euros.
What?
One of the apps is called 20
Oh,
euros.
okay. So I'll click on that, and
WordPress.
it has this
Do they
little
have a
loading.
Ghost installer?
I think they do, yeah. I'm gonna say you should use my Ghost installer, but
I know. I was gonna say you're gonna get territorial.
it'll be
right now.
cheaper. I've got Mailgun integration. It's great. I'm proud of my Ghost installer. But
Why YunoHost on our Ghost installer?
so this is cool. It has little things like here's the integration. So architectures. This would be like if you're running on a Raspberry Pi. Not every app is gonna work. So this is saying it'll run on anything. It has the LDAP and single sign-on integration I talked about, which we'll look at, and it even gives you like a little resource usage thing. This is hilarious to me as someone who deals with WordPress every day. I'm like, they don't know this. Like, this is maybe an empty WordPress site.
Yeah, exactly.
But whatever. It has some like basic links to like the official website, the YunoHost installer repository, all kinds of things, which is nice.
That's cool.
I love this too. Hey, this has features that you may want to look up for. Like certain things are paid, like certain plugins in WordPress are
Yeah,
paid.
good
Um,
call.
so I can pick a domain here. I can pick a URL path. I don't think I'm not. I haven't tried. I don't know if it's going to let me put it at the root. Let's try that. It says who should have access. This is cool. So you can lock down by default. If you want a completely private site that nobody can look at except for you, you can
Oh,
say
wow.
only admins or only other people who are in the users list can access this, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah.
And then choose an admin. So you can have multiple admins and pick who has admin and what, which is neat.
Oh, wow.
And again, we know
multi-site, too.
on WordPress, this is just something you can do in WordPress, right? But this can set it up that way out of the box for you, which is cool.
I like that. Yeah.
And it's got a multi-site option to do. So let's just hit install here.
Sure.
Oh, it says if you install
I
this on
wonder if you
slash,
just keep it.
I'll
But
keep
yeah,
it in
just
blog.
get rid of the slash. See what it does when you get rid of the
Well,
slash.
I think the thing here is it doesn't, it
Ah.
can't do the Apache thing where like things can live under directories under each other.
It can install it at the root.
It can, but then you would have no other applications at the root, right? So, one thing to consider here though is maybe you would put different subdomains. So maybe you'd have yaps.jaden.cloud, but I could
have an
add.
application at that root. It's not like you in any service you would.
You
host
can. It just
multiple
warns you that
applications
you
at
won't
the
be able to
root.
put anything under it, basically.
What
So
does that mean under it?
Like if I put something at the root, I can't do something at /blog or /ghost or whatever.
You
And I
can.
think that's a result of Nginx and how it manages Nginx configurations.
Gotcha.
So it's not that Nginx isn't capable of that. I think at some point they have to put a limit on what they're able to like handle in their, because they have to manage all of the Nginx rules every single time you install a new app, which is kind of complicated. And in something that Installatron barely has to do, it does a little bit, but like Installatron and cPanel mostly can just put an application in a folder and know that Apache will just make it work.
Let's make this directory where we install it. Let us install that root.
Install at root. So what I would say though is if you were using this for a lot of things, I would put YunoHost on its own subdomain, and then you could have, because you can manage multiple domains. So I could put my WordPress install at a different domain name, right? So that would be an option, but
Gotcha.
we'll do this for now. So it's going to go here and install.
The existential Pac-Man has returned. Oh, another WordPress. I'm stuck in this machine. I don't have any fruit. I can't do anything. No one's chasing me. I have no life. Nothing to eat.
So
the prison Pac-Man.
So one of the things it does here is it literally just installs packages that it needs. And like I said, that can get a little bit complicated if you have various applications that need to run on different versions of things. And that is honestly where something like Reclaim Cloud is really good, because all of these environments in these nodes inside the environment are separate. So you can install different versions of whatever your dependencies are for a particular application, keep them separate. Everything here is running in one box, which makes it nice to try things out. But I wouldn't expect mission critical stuff to just work over time. I would expect things to break and some troubleshooting to be needed if you're running 8 different apps, inside of YunoHost over years, right? But I think this is really cool for a certain type of user. And to be clear, that's not that different to how cPanel works. It's not like you can just install Omeka and then come back 8 years later, not having touched it, and expect everything works. You have to maintain it. You have to install, update things.
We know that firsthand. Those are the accounts that get hacked.
Yeah. So it's not that different in that way. Okay, so I've got this installed here. It did give me some warnings, it looks like.
Install WordPress.
Oh, yeah, I saw this error before. I'm not really 100% sure, but this is fine. This is just a warning saying like it can't do something with the services on the server. But
that's your typical ransomware.
Yeah. I think this is related to how Reclaim Press containers work. Reclaim Cloud containers work, but it hasn't seemed to be a problem in all the things I've tested with it.
That's
And
awesome.
then bind9 is a DNS related thing, but we should be good there. So anyway, if I go in here, I can of course manage the application. But the cool thing is if I go to home, there is this is the admin interface, but there is a user interface side to YunoHost. So if I click on that, I have to log into that too. Oops. But this is what this looks like. You
So
get
this
this
is what
little
the user
dashboard.
interface looks like, and hence the periodic table
Table of
applications.
lamp stack applications,
Yeah.
or more than lamp, I guess. Yeah. So as you install things, it shows up here, and this is cool because I can have I could make you an account, and you would have a dashboard showing the apps you have access to.
I like the visual effect of this. Let's
Mhm.
click on WordPress, see what happens.
So when I go there, it just
Oh,
obviously
God.
brings me to the actual thing. Let's try to log into WordPress itself, which that didn't work. Yeah, I didn't get logged in. Why not?
You didn't log you right in.
It did that before for me. So what's up here?
You say you logged me in.
I'm realizing
But
I should
you don't think you did
have
what
it
you
do
said.
SSL too.
Self-signed. That's God darn it. It's a self-signed one. You say you'd log me in, Sam Smith.
Oh, okay.
But
Please check your
what?
DNS configuration for configurability. Okay, so sure.
Oh, here he is.
This is Existential Pac-Man's back
Do you think that's Sam Smith's soul?
in a box.
After his one hit. What am I going to do? I have no more hits. All my music career is over. I can't just keep that song all the time. All right. Let's see what happens.
Pilots asked, is the self-signed cert good for 10 years? Self-signed certs are just meaning that the application, it's like it doesn't work for almost anything. A self-signed cert is what it'll put in place before it has a real cert. And so
it's like
those can last as long.
License to
you
get
can
into
literally,
Hey,
a self-signed
I'm
cert is just a
18.
text file that says I can do what I want, right? Basically. And browsers look at that and go, okay, cool, buddy. And they don't really believe it, but you could put whatever date you want on that. You could put an expiration date of 3,000 years in the future. It doesn't.
Your little art project isn't getting you into this bar.
Yeah. Okay, so this is saying it doesn't have IPv6. We don't do IPv6 on Reclaim Cloud, so that makes sense. We can ignore that. It's saying, hey, I'm missing some mail-related DNS records. Okay, so I could add those potentially. It doesn't like that port 25 is reachable and 587. Oh, sorry, port 25 is not reachable in 587. So I could actually fix that from the firewall again. So let me do that.
But it's getting a little needy now. YunoHost.
Yeah, I mean
I have to say, I was happy with it, but now it's a little bit like you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right.
Well, the thing is, this is stuff that to run all kinds of different services you'd have to do, and so I really like that it even has a diagnosis for this and says oh, you should consider doing this and that.
You feel like it's a little needy right now.
I guess. I mean, I
Scale of 1 to 10. How needy?
I'm trying to remember. Is 25 for SMTP? I'm trying to remember.
25 needy.
What is 20? Oh, yep, 25 is for SMTP,
SMTP.
and so is 587. That's for the encrypted version.
If
so
we want to get those password reset emails.
Yep. So I'm actually gonna get rid of. I like labeling them so that I actually know what they're for. So I'll do it that way. All right. So I've opened those.
Email. Beautiful.
Yep. Oh, reverse DNS. Sure. We're not going to do everything with mail today, but yeah. So that is good. We're gonna call that fine for right now.
It's fine.
Yeah. So I do want to go in. Okay. So I wonder if I have to. I don't remember how I had to do this before. Okay. I remember. This is not single sign in the normal sense. What it means is it's syncing my password. I'm misremembering how this works because it never sent me a
Uh,
WordPress password. But it made me an account using the same user information and it syncs it. So it actually
that's
uses
nice,
an
actually.
internal LDAP to do
Yeah.
that. So that's how that works. It's interesting. They even have their own like little badge here that will bring back the little dashboard, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, that
Um,
is cool.
and it has some basic things installed. So it comes with the Kismet turned off, but there, Hello Dolly, basic HTTP auth. I think this would be useful if you weren't using the LDAP one. Fail to ban, which is interesting, is
Yeah,
in
it
there
is.
already. And then I've actually started using this on some of my own WordPress sites. This is just an auto update plugin, but I like it because these exist out there, but this one's configurable, so you can say, "Oh, please do these types of updates and don't email me about them, or do email
Uh,
me if something goes wrong," that kind of stuff. Um,
nice.
so I've actually used this on a couple sites already, so that's kind of cool. But I mean, it's WordPress, so it's like that is not.
Do you get emails or do you have to set up email separately?
So it does have an SMTP server. It will do emails.
It will.
Um, yep. Now, whether you do, that's where going through that portal. So if I go back to YunoHost here in the admin interface,
Yeah.
um, that's where going through that diagnostics of, all right,
Yeah.
we need to make sure all these ports, so I could rerun this one. But setting up DNS records. So it's going to say, okay, you don't have the mail records yet. I didn't do
Yeah.
that, right? So you would want to go to details here. The cool thing is it tells you these are the ones you need, including it says, here's your DMARC and DKIM, which is
Wow.
great.
That is.
cPanel does this for you too, right? But if you don't have something like cPanel, sometimes these are hard to figure out on your
Yeah.
own. So this is super cool. Um,
I
it
agree.
it has other ports that it recommends we open. We're not going to do all this because I just want to install a few more services, but I would go through this list and do all of these things, or most of them anyway, if I was using this long term. It has its own little backup, so you can backup. You can make new backups and restore
That's
them
good.
and move them between
Very
YunoHost
good.
installations. It even has some like cloud integrations. So I was looking at this. It looks like it would be a little bit of work to set up, but there are some things that you can set up where it can do a backup and put it in an S3 bucket for you, which is
Yeah. What are
cool.
tools? What tools are there?
Some log stuff. So you can these are all the logs are contained in here.
Migrations.
Migrations. I think this is to go between
Huh.
different domains in YunoHost
Gotcha.
potentially. I'm not actually 100% sure about that. This is just some services that are running on the server, so we can say like, all right,
Gotcha.
we're not running PHP 7.4. All right, we're not
Probably
doing
good.
this and that. Firewall. So it has its own firewall.
Gotcha.
So that would be, honestly, you could argue that maybe in this one case, because it has its own internal firewall, that you could turn off the Reclaim Cloud firewall. I still wouldn't.
Yeah.
But what I would actually do is make sure these match up.
Yeah.
And having two firewalls in a setup like this isn't really going to hurt you. So there's some security stuff, some web admin settings, but this is all somewhat basic. You can reboot the server from here, I guess. I love the domains thing, so you just add a domain and say, yeah, I want to add
That's
one,
so cool.
and it'll say, great, point in a record here. That kind of, it walks you through it.
Yeah.
The applications though, that there are users. So if I add a new user here, let's add Sam Smith. I think.
You say you love him,
I don't actually care what the
but
password
he
is because I'm
won't
not gonna.
accept your email.
I'm not gonna. Here, we're gonna use junk for a password. 'Cause I'm not actually gonna log in to this one. So when I add this though, I can go into applications and automatically add, access to them. So I can go in here and maybe I have to do that from users. Yeah, I probably do have to.
Edit Smith's account. Add a mail alias. Add a mail forward.
I'm not 100% sure how I would add them, but
Add a hit single. Sam.
oh, here we go. Groups
There it is.
allowed to access this. So I can go in here and say, yep, let's add Sam Smith to this as well as an
That's cool.
admin.
Oh.
So that's kind of cool. It kind of goes a step further, at least with certain apps, right? Not all of them are going to be supported in that way. So if I go here, we'll hit install. We'll do a couple more things. So we got a few minutes yet. So let's add.
I have about 4 minutes. I have about 4 minutes.
Yeah, sounds good. So let's try. Let's see how
the ghost. I was hoping
goes.
you would do this.
So I will say right off the bat, it doesn't support Ghost 6, which I believe just came out.
Good point, Taylor.
Yeah. But whatever, it's fine.
All right. You're not taking this personal, which is good. Not personal. It's purely an existential Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Ghost. Where are my ghosts? Where are all the ghosts? That's what Pac-Man's thinking. Oh, finally, ghosts.
So this is one thing that the way it installs applications here is I don't love. Maybe there's a way to do this, but it seems like I have to stay here. Like I can't navigate and do multiple things at a time. Whatever. That's one thing that's a little bit annoying. Although I bet if I just open a new tab and logged in to the admin, that probably would be okay too. But certain applications that are drastically different take a long time to install, relatively, because they have to install Node and all its dependencies and that kind of stuff. To be fair, it's not like deploying a new environment on Reclaim Cloud also takes like 3 or 4 minutes,
does,
right?
Yeah,
so exactly. it's not nothing what we're asking it to do here.
What is the underlying structure? Obviously, it's a Debian server, but are they like building out containers?
No, it's not containerized at all, which again is kind of a downside, right? So what it's doing is it's just installing from the command line, basically, or the package managers. It's doing a sudo apt-get Node.js, right? So it's just installing packages as needed. The problem is there can be conflicts between those. So like I said, this tries to manage it, and everything I've tried so far has worked really well. But they do have a whole section of like poorly supported or this might break things kind of apps. So I'm sure not everything works amazingly. That's just the nature of this kind of stuff. And like I said, that's the problem with, or that's the advantage of doing things in a container, whether you're using Docker or like Reclaim Cloud's nodes. You can set up an app and then it's not like other things aren't going to interfere with it, right? It's going to stay in the state that you leave it. So that's one big advantage. So this one failed. That's no good. Error. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. We're not going to have time to troubleshoot this, but so let's see if it worked anyway, though. Maybe it did. So it would be yaps / ghost, I think. Nope, not there. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's up with that. And like I said,
this is a really good publicity for your ghost installer.
Yeah, my ghost installer works.
This never happened on Taylor's ghost installer.
There's a ton of different little things in here. Like I said, I'm planning on keeping this around just to discover applications, honestly, and try them out. And if there's something really helpful, maybe I would make my own installer for them, right? If people really want them. Like this is like a whole media related one, but let me
it's definitely a cool system. I like the way it organizes. I love the periodical table of apps and stuff. There's Discourse, which is a pain to install. So if you can get Discourse easy, that's nice.
Our own Discourse installer should be on our roadmap, I think, because I think that people might make use of that if we can make it easy. That's the thing.
It's not the easiest application to install. It just is
easier.
Yeah. Wow. Mattermost?
Mailman, everyone's favorite mailing list manager.
There it is.
So so there's some familiar things in here. You can
chat?
Roundcube, like as a mail client, right? We have that as part of cPanel, but it's interesting and cool to see this in a community-led project like this to me. There's a ton of stuff in here. I was playing around with I think it's N8N. And we actually have an installer for this in Reclaim Cloud. I noticed after the fact, so I want to try that one out. I haven't tried. We didn't build it; it's part of the
Yeah.
platform as we got it. But this is something I found just looking through the catalogs. This is kind of like IFTT or Zapier, but self-hostable. And so that's kind of cool. This has been just an interesting way for me to find applications too. So I really like YunoHost. I don't imagine everything will work perfectly, but that's not the nature of things like this that try to do everything, right? So I'm going to keep it around and use it as a kind of playground for open source apps that I'm maybe less familiar with.
It's interesting. It's comparable to Cloud Run, but Cloud Run, where it's
Yes.
dealing with containers and all this is really just your own server and running those applications and dependencies. And there's some power in that too. I like it. I think
Yeah, I
it's super
forgot.
cool.
Cloud Run is probably the closest thing, honestly,
Yeah.
because this is what Cloud Run's trying to do, and Cloud Run does really well because it manages those containers. The problem
Yeah.
is Cloud Run is not free, and it has less, I believe, applications in its catalog. Although it does have a lot. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
here too. So Cloud Run is cool, but it's kind of expensive. You can only get 2 applications for free, and then beyond that, it's $15 a month just for this, right? You still have to
Yeah.
pay for your server,
Yeah,
those
and all of
costs
that.
separately
Yeah.
with whatever host you're going to use. So,
It's true.
yeah, this is kind of an interesting, to me anyway, alternative to something like Cloud Run. And I don't know. I mean, if I'm gonna keep this around, use it for a while, and I could totally see. I don't think it would make a ton of sense for us to have our own installer for this, to be honest, because this is never going to be one click in the way that we want our installers to work. Like you're gonna have to do DNS stuff, you're gonna have to do port stuff, things like that. Although we could do the ports, but I could totally see featuring this as something that's easy to do on Reclaim Cloud, should you want to, and saying, here's how you do it.
I have to go.
Yeah.
So my question to you is scale of 1 to 10.
So if Ghost is on, my personal scale, which is apparently 1 to 7, but I don't know, if Ghost and WordPress are 10, I guess I would put this at an 8. And I think,
Wow.
and I'm giving it points for ambition, and I love that this is a community
Driven.
free
Yeah,
open source thing.
absolutely.
I think it works pretty well. I think they're trying to solve the problems that people will run into when running this themselves. There's bugs around it. So if it was like a paid product, it would be maybe like a 5.
Yeah.
But it's not. So I think it's like a 7 or 8.
Wow.
I really like this project, and I'm definitely gonna be watching where it goes.
I like it too. I think it's cool, and I'm glad you introduced it to me, or introduced me to it, or however that would go. But I appreciate it. That was awesome.
YunoHost, meet Jim.
Exactly.
Sam Smith, meet Jim.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I'll let you go. You got to run. And thanks everyone for tuning in today.